care package inbound.
Hello everybody, this is a video response to a question I had posted on one of my videos where I was talking about how copper dragons, or dragons in general with their high charisma and intelligence, could intimidate people, specifically adventurers, player characters, who have failed to score any significant hits on them and had a lot of damage taken in the round, and how I might say that they could have an advantage on the charisma check or intimidation roll against the player characters. And somebody asked me, do I allow player characters to be intimidated by monsters? And on further discussion in the Google Hangouts with other people, it turned out it was quite a juicy subject, and one that engendered a lot of conversation. And I've been reading through the literature to see if there's anything that would specifically cover monsters intimidating player characters, and there's not a lot really. So just talking about how player characters intimidate monsters, or how they do social interactions, because it is a social interaction. So you can treat the player characters as a hostile creature. So in the case of a social interaction, at the end of the dragon intimidating the adventuring party, it would roll on a conversation reaction table, and if the DC would probably be something like a 20 or so for the dragon to actually succeed in intimidating the player characters, at which point, as a DM, it's your job to impress upon the players how their characters feel, sort of. I mean, you can talk about how terrifying and things, and how overwhelming it seems that this dragon has got the drop on you, and the situation's hopeless, and weigh your words carefully to give them the option of either, look, you can either surrender or this thing is going to kill you, and that's perfectly fine. I would draw the line, and I always do, at giving the players an outright no on any of the actions that they choose to do, because they're in control of their character, and it's their job to roleplay their character's personality and their reactions to things. It's very tempting as a player to say, well, my character just shrugs it off and attacks anyway. But you've got to ask yourself, does your character have a greater sense of self-worth than that? Do they have a sense of preservation that would make them stop and take pause and consider their options? Particularly, and I think it's very strong to impress, that there has to be the option of a gain from surrendering. So if they're throwing down the weapons just to be killed, of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't do that. You would try and fight on. But if it seems very sure that the monster is giving the option to actually live and surrender and possibly be let free at some stage, or just to stop and talk, I don't see why it's such a big deal. Really, you don't. I mean, you've already lost the experience points for beating the thing. Okay, it's already intimidated you, and as a DM, you could say, no, it stops there. The combat's over. You're so intimidated that you can't even throw a weapon against this thing. I'm going to give you disadvantage on every single attack roll because you're terrified. I'm going to make you run in fear. You know, you could be a tool about it, really. But not giving monsters that option of intimidating or subduing their opponent is a huge disservice, and it makes the game unbalanced. Because why else would you give a monster a charisma score or intelligence score, or the intelligence to do that sort of thing? I mean, a dragon is more intelligent than a human being in many cases. It's got more personality, more charisma, and charisma is an interesting stat because charisma is opposed by itself. So if you make an charisma check to intimidate somebody, they oppose you with their charisma score because of that's their strength of personality. It's almost like their mental willpower. You would think that wisdom would be the one to use, but wisdom is more like insight or awareness of the zen of the situation around you. Charisma really covers mental sense of force of will as well. That's why charisma is used for sorcerer spells and things like that. So yeah, you could either go through using the social interaction table, which gives you the DCs for things. If it's an unopposed check, if you've just decided that the dragon has to roll on this table to see whether its intimidation has actually got a chance of affecting them. And then you can go with the actual charisma contested intimidation checks. And intimidation in this case, it doesn't actually go into a lot of detail about how you oppose it, but I would say it's charisma versus charisma. And of course, give the dragon, if it's just done a devastating amount of damage in combat, give it advantage on the roll. Or if it's really circumstantial, there's no hard and fast rules, but it is up to the individual DM whether they want to do this or not. And I would say don't be a tool about it, give them an option to choose their character's own reactions and actions, but make it very clear to them that the consequences are that their characters are definitely deeply affected by this. Their morale has been broken, and so it's going to be reflected in their combat stats and things. Yeah, so I find it very interesting how other people handle this, and I think it's definitely an area that there's a lot of room for improvement in the rules. It's a bit iffy. There's no hard and fast things about it, so I'd love to hear back in the comments or some video responses, how you handle it, and give me some examples from your games. I'd be very keen to get into a conversation about it.
Drop.